First of all, on your report, you talk about debt, and this is something that could possibly get worse as we deal with these energy swings and, of course, also inflation going higher. What's your main concern for the French economy right now?
Well, thank you for giving me the floor. Actually, it is a report of the financial risk, and we do this report every 6 months. So it's the picture where we are now, and just as a reminder, in January we were before the war, and we could not predict what happened. Inflation is very high. Maybe the French don't realize that it was less high in France than in other countries of the euro area and other countries in the world. So the central bank on the monetary side is going to act according to the mandate to preserve price stability. What we are looking at now is the impact, for example, on the banks. There are negative elements, but there are also positive elements in terms of margins for interest rates, as the French deposits are not rewarded in any way. So we are looking at all these elements, and our message now is so far so good. We all know that the amount of public debt and private debt of the non-financial companies is quite high in France compared once again to the major economies. So we look at it carefully. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the risks of the French financial system, first of all, I have to applaud you because you have a wonderful chart laying out very, very simply, easy to understand, and other complex issues. You basically point to 3 cyclical concerns, and this is, market risks, it's stressed rebalancing conditions, and also pressures on profitability of financial firms. And then you talk about the more structural aspects, right, which is basically cyber threats and climate change. How much do you worry about some of these market dislocations?
Well, at this stage, there is no dislocation. Once again, we consider that the risks are high. The risk links to the macroeconomic downturn are high. The stress refinancing conditions are there, and we look at the scenarios we have ourselves published recently in the worst case scenario, of course, with a kind of embargo of energy, etc. We all know that in this case, the prices will go even higher than they are right now. And on energy, central banks are not at the forefront. And on the pressures on the profitability, as I said, there are pluses and minuses. For insurance companies on life insurance, you have to look at it carefully. For the banks, it's a little bit differentiated. But all the efforts we made since the great financial crisis to increase the resilience of our banks and other institutions are now having an effect. We have banks that are well capitalized, and we are not worried on this front.
How should investors look at the high amount of government debt? When does this start being a concern, especially if we need to see further spending actually from the government to face all of the uncertainties in the next 6 months?
I'm not a member of the government, and Bruno Le Maire himself said on Monday that the situation was serious. So if I may, it's the duty of the government. Now, we have 2 sorts of debts. The COVID debt was necessary and was a reaction to an emergency situation. The important thing is to go back to levels of debt that are sustainable, not just to please Brussels or to meet criteria, but because it's in the interest of the country. And I'm confident that this government that is insisting a lot on the French sovereignty will do what is necessary to keep it under control.
Yeah. How should we look at risks emanating from crypto, digital currencies?
Well, this is very interesting. What we experienced in the last months is a real stress test, if I may say so, of what cryptos are. And I recommend investors to be careful. It's a less regulated field. We are used to be quite protected in our markets. The crypto world is less backed by regulation and supervision. So what we observed is, to a certain extent, something that has to do with the very speculative nature of crypto. So we are looking at it. We need, of course, global regulation. The FSB is working on that. But we are by far not where we should be in terms of regulation. So to all investors, be careful.
And how do you view, for example, markets in this post-Brexit world?
Well, I wish we would be really post-Brexit. We had an agreement. The agreement was signed and ratified, and the only thing I can say as a central banker is that I'm confident that people are going to respect the rules they have themselves negotiated. What is sure is that, and we observe this in the war, we need to have a strong system if we are under attack from countries that would not dislike to play with all the divergences we have between us. So we should really hurry up. For the rest, we supervise the institutions based in Paris. We have the European rules. The passporting is always possible from one EU country to another one. And we are on the side of the Irish people to defend the Good Friday's agreement.